when you're thinking about the flows of capital, when you're talking to your portfolio companies and, they may be either panicking on whether or not they're going to get another check. They may be thinking about all of this bad news that's happening around the market and how it might affect their business. How does Castle Island approach that? How are you reassuring them, and how are you preparing them for maybe a more frugal future, at least in the near term?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that we've been very actively doing since kicking off. Our latest fund is, if you're raising capital in July or August, traditionally you're raising at a seed or Series A, you're thinking about kind of an 18 to 24 months of runway. And, given what the market looks like, we're just saying, hey, expect things to take longer, expect things to be more expensive, and figure out a way to kind of extend that to 30, 36 months. Part of that is just driven by, and we saw this back in 2017 and 18. So in that ICO boom, by the way, like all these generalist firms kind of poured in pretty late and then they disappeared. And they came in pretty aggressively in this most recent kind of bubble. And where they were coming in was kind of in this Series B, C, D stage, where traditionally these firms were coming in. Like historically, if you look at some of these generalist firms, they're Series A investors, and they're coming in a little bit later. And part of that is they're trying to figure out how to get action on the space. And it's easier to come in at a Series B or C because you can look at an income statement and just say, hey, this thing's actually really working, regardless of what industry it's in. Like I can look at an income statement and say this thing is working, and so I'll pay up and put more money in at a Series B or C. And I think a lot of that capital's gone for the time being. And so that's where you're just saying, hey, like, let's get to 2025 if we have to. And the good news is look, like if the market bounces back in a big way in the middle of this year, you can react. You can start to spend more aggressively. You can go out and raise additional capital, but you want to be able to be prepared that this could be, a 2.5 year bear market, which we've seen in the past. So it's the good news for companies that have raised in the last year is that if they had plans to triple their employee count, a lot of them didn't get the opportunity to even do that yet. They were starting to hire, and it's like, hey, maybe you only grow your team by 75% instead of 3x in a year.
Interesting. So it's almost like they had the mandate to grow like crazy, but then when things started to slow down, they didn't even get a chance to fulfill it.
And so and then the ones that had raised capital the year prior are faced with the decision of like, okay, it's time to maybe reduce the team size by X% to kind of give us the runway to kind of survive through this bear market.
Where are you seeing in terms of like management level, where like when you're working with these Web3 crypto companies, where are you seeing an overemphasis and focus, or maybe misguided, right? And where are you seeing a place where they should be focusing more time on, if anywhere?
It kind of depends on where you're selling into today. So there's still like a tremendous amount of appetite amongst these brands. I think I highlighted that in the Medium post that you had mentioned, where you have the Nikes and Pradas and Gucci's and Tiffany's of the world that are leaning into the NFT space aggressively. And so does it make sense to have a bigger focus in sales and marketing if you're selling any product or service into that space? Today it does. If you're an AUM based, or if you are a transaction based revenue business, you're clipping off a lower number today, right? And there's less volume. And so it probably makes sense to focus more on kind of product and technology as opposed to sales and marketing at this point.
Got you. So it's like if it is, it's almost like if it's a consumer brand, right? Then you could almost generalize it in that way and say that you should be spending more on the S&M side. But when it comes to the B2B, or the nuts and bolts of these consumer brands, right? The picks and shovels, as you said earlier, they should just be building, right? They should be focused on building a better product, and building, I guess, for hopefully a brighter future, right?
Yeah, ultimately, like, if it depends on where you're selling into, but it's if you're selling into customers that are experiencing pain right now, like crypto native customers, how do you make your product as sticky as possible so that they can't live without you? And that would be like investing in product and technology.